This is AV SuperFriends On Topic, a 30-minute monthly roundtable focused on a single topic. This discussion will be opinionated, to the point, and saturated with our well-known blend of painfully won expertise and deeply ingrained immaturity. For April 2021, it's the AV SuperFriends On Topic. Well, welcome back, everybody. Time for another podcast adventure with the AV SuperFriends. My name's Chris Dector. I'm joined by Justin, Mark, Larry, Jamie, and Rachel. We got the whole crew here for you today. And today's topic is emerging technologies. So we're going to cover everything that's not yet here, but is sort of here, or maybe here soon, or maybe something that looks really cool, but will never exist. Or we're just going to make it up like Justin said.
Just make it up.
We'll probably just
make it up because it's not here yet, so we can say whatever we want, and you're going to, it sounds great, let's go get that. You can't get that. It doesn't
so exist. Is this yet to emerge show or emerging? I
think the idea is this is more of, these are things that are actually do exist, but are not yet in widespread use, but will be soon.
Emerging.
They're in the process of
coming out of the cocoon. They're not quite there.
Is that like turn signals on cars? Like people will start using them soon?
Trends.
I have a BMW. I don't have turn signals, so.
Oh, okay. Just check. Just flags.
No, I just
stick it out the window when I signal.
You wait for me. I'm just going to turn. But before we get to this exciting topic of emerging technologies, Justin, I understand you came across something that's super emerging and was a kind of a neat little news story. What do you have for us?
Yeah, I was playing around on Twitter the other day, maybe last week, and realized that Microsoft came out with something called Mesh. And I was like, what's this? Pulled it up, watched a couple videos, and it directly made me think of when everybody asks me, what do you think about the classroom of the future? And I always say, this Ready Player One movie, the experience of being there, etc. This is close to that. Basically, you're virtually meeting with avatars, and you can play around with stuff. If you're engineering a car, you can move parts around. Go check it out online. It's all over the place. They're advertising it for, keywords like field presence, experience together, connect from anywhere. It utilizes a lot of existing technology that's already out there. For instance, the HoloLens 2, your iPhones, computers, tablets, VR headsets, things like that. So, when we talk about the classroom of the future, we were discussing this, I think, maybe early this week. If it goes this way, why do you need a physical classroom at that point, right? So what do y'all think about this?
I think that virtual reality is a terrible place to interact with human beings. It is a great place to do design work. It's a great place to do experimentation. It's a great place to do engineering training. But it is a nuts place to have like a conversation with a person. And I think that we'll see the same kind of I think we'll see AR, VR applications hit the same kind of wall that we see voice applications hit, right? Where people are very willing and very enthusiastic to use them in certain contexts, especially when they're alone. But that when you ask them to do it in public, they're going to be like, no, I look like an idiot.
Yeah, I don't think this is scalable or supportable. Like you might see, Harvard or someone in 5 or 10 years have a group of these on their campus, people with a lot of money. But I don't know. 20 years from now, I don't know.
I think from a classroom's perspective, in a computer lab, in a design lab, something like that, I could see maybe in 5-10 years it working. But the majority of the class activities, you either need to have content creation or it's just an inefficient method of conducting the class. And so I think it'll have its niche, but it's not going to be everywhere.
And you also have different learning styles. Go ahead, Jamie.
Well, out of curiosity, did any of you have
3 times
in your campuses? Well, you're going to regret that answer when I get the question.
Now you're going to change the question.
on your campuses, in your life, remember that trend, what was it, Second Life? Right? The online avatar world. And they actually tried to have courses and and content delivery in this way. And just like most educational entrepreneurs, it does work for a certain level of person, right? For certain people, it's fantastic. For the masses, usually not. But this kind of reminds me of when you start thinking about it in terms of it's Second Life with goggles, right? Instead of just headphones and a computer monitor. And now that Chris has had 3 or 4 Second Life instances in his world,
I am on life
maybe
7.
it's for him.
He's like
Maybe
a
it's
cat.
for him.
I think it's going to be like, it's like the lab experience, right? Where we all did the really expensive video walls when they first came out. And you had these very unique spaces. You're going to see it, just like Justin said. There's going to be a school that builds one or 2 of them that go in cahoots together and put 2 of them together so they can talk back and forth about some really high-tech engineering class. But I think it's one-off-ish, but people do like it. It does have like the whiz-bang wow factor.
Well, and there are cases where it's actually more efficient, right? Those edge cases exist. Like, even I know that HoloLens has had a use case for a long time, where there are aerospace and aeronautics engineers who are training to work on airplane engines, and the way they used to have to do this was to fly them to a physical, like, training airplane engine, where they could take it apart and put it back together. And that's how they would do their training. And using the HoloLens, this was back when the HoloLens was still super expensive, but it was still cheaper to send the engineer in training the HoloLens and have them do the training on an AR model. And they found it was equally effective in terms of learning. So those kinds of cases will always exist. And you think about people who are training to be doctors. So many more students enroll in pre-med programs than ever go to medical school or become doctors. It's going to be much cheaper for schools to give them AR bodies to work on than actual cadavers. These dead bodies don't just come up from the ground. Well, I mean, I guess they literally do come up from the ground, but you get my point.
That's where I get mine from. I get them from the ground. They're great.
I do, and Epson makes a support set of AR glasses. You guys have seen this, right?
Yeah.
So like I would sit here at home and I would give a set of these glasses to all my entry level techs or students, and they just walk into the room. And they put on the glasses, and I basically tell them, put your left hand on the red cable, put your right hand on the blue, but don't cut the green. And then they say, I'm colorblind.
AV Twister?
Right?
Left foot yellow, right foot blue.
I think this is about
Epson,
that. It's that content thing again, though. I think that's where it comes back to. It's like, this is like having the greatest video game system in the world, but there's no games to play on it, right? And so until there's a really, ton of content that's in there, which is coming. There's a lot of people doing 3D modeling every day. There's a lot, and that'll kind of be the double-edged sword is, will they make it super proprietary so that only content made with this software works in this platform, therefore they'll kill themselves. And so it's got to be open so that people can create content at mass.
Well, I'm not inventing anything brilliant here, but I do believe that the way that AR is going to reach the masses is not going to be through headsets. It's going to be through their phones. That's the way people are already commonly using AR. And I think even for that service use case, that when that is really, really common and widespread, the mechanism is going to be somebody holding up their phone in front of the thing they're looking at and seeing the AR model overlaid, not putting on a big bulky headset. By the way, how much does a HoloLens weigh these days? Like, talking about that as the classroom of the future, what's that going to do to our necks?
It's going to be a football helmet for the stuff.
I just want you all to
Bill
know
Goldberg.
that when you all install this, you'll be able to look at 3D versions of me all the time.
Well, they're not
Every
3D
angle.
versions.
No interest
It's
in
an
that.
avatar. It's like a cartoon avatar.
It's not even
right?
you. Man.
Oh, no, buddy. I will build a 3D model scale of myself.
Jamie has a team.
He's
working
getting the
on
LiDAR array
a
set up right now.
photorealistic
Oh, buddy, it's happening. And when you all get this in your room, it's the first thing you're going to subscribe to is
It'll be fabulous.
this little person.
Jamie Vision, is that what we're going to be
it's
watching?
Jamie Vision.
It's Jamie's version of real life Siri. So it just drops in your
I'll
room.
be the-
What do you need
I'll
help
be
with
the-
today? Where's your red cable? I'm here to cut it.
Guys,
I'm sorry, I can't do
are we gotta take a break before we start exploring what the real first use case of VR is going to be.
Oh, you already know what it is, and it's an OnlyFans site that Chris has three subscriptions.
3 subscriptions too. Yeah.
It's
yeah,
called
there
it's
you
called
go.
Jamie Fans, and it's only for Jamie fans. So, all right,
And he's got 3.
Let's take a quick break before our recording crashes, and we'll pick this up on the other side.
Believe it or not, this show is actually as disciplined as we get when talking about our industry. You'd like to hear more, let's say, unfiltered content from the AV SuperFriends? Then head over to avsuperfriends.com and check out our other show, Off the Rails. Join Chris, Mark, Justin, Larry, Rachel, and I as we dig into the different aspects of higher ed AV. We'll also chat about pedagogy, swoon over the shiny new gadgets, and see what other interesting topics we pull out of the mailbag. That's Off the Rails and found on our website at avsuperfriends.com.
Well, welcome back. So today's topic, emerging technologies. We were just discussing an emerging technology, but that technology's too nascent to be emerging yet. It's pre-emerging. It's pre-merging. In a little bit of a setup for this discussion, we kind of hash this out because emerging technologies is a very broad topic, and that can mean almost anything. And where we kind of kept settling was this idea of technologies. Let me rephrase: transport technologies, kind of merging into kind of streams that aren't proprietary based on what sort of connector you're using or what sort of codec it's using or what sort of encoding system it's using, and that you could kind of have this universal transport, and that would be, a technology that is, you could do that now actually if you wanted to. If you really wanted to build out your infrastructure that way, you could. But Mark, I believe you call this the death of the AV connector. And then I think I believe it was Justin corrected us to death of AV transport. But so,
yeah.
So Mark, what's your concept on this as far as the death of the AV connector? Because we're still going to have physical connectors, but you're thinking kind of more holistically.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to that in a classroom experience where we're kind of building out. More and more what we do every day is just network enabled. We're just subscribing to streams and transporting that around via the network. And if it's all just simple network connection, and I think we're going to see the proliferation of more devices that do not have any recognizable AV connections outside of a Cat5 connector on it. And I think we're seeing that now, where everything is just either Dante or NDI or the mix of all these different things, and there's really no recognizable AV connector or spigot on it that we would normally have with our little black boxes. Now these things are just black boxes with Cat5s, and the computers are subscribing the streams. And I think we'll actually see at some point like more endpoints being like displays will actually be able to take these things in outside of the HD-based or AV over IP, whatever that is. But right now that's usually a little transcoder box. But I think we'll start to see that kind of shift in the coming months or years here.
Well, there you
So
have it.
Chris
That's
said-
all the emerging
That's it.
technologies you need. Just
We're
that one
done.
thing. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I'm going
Big
to pile
hole.
on here. Chris said we'll still have physical connectors of some kind, but will we?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Guaranteed.
You don't think that 5G is going to make it possible to carry these
I almost
streams?
swore right there on that.
What about
Powerful marketing I've heard recently is 5G will fix all our problems on a higher frequency transmission that needs to be closer with more transmitters. That ain't fixing anything.
It
I don't
is
know about-
definitely
Because what
way
backhaul
up
are
on
they
the
using?
hype curve right
Cables.
now, and it's about to, I think, dive down into the what is
Yeah.
it called, the trough of despair. But that said, not even 5G, but like Wi-Fi 6 is going to have some deterministic networking capabilities that may make it so that some of these signals can be successfully, reliably transmitted wirelessly.
I hate to be
the
this
concept's
guy
the
because
same.
I feel old, but troubleshooting is already difficult enough over a wired network.
Get off my
Like, can you
lawn.
imagine a classroom's down in classroom emergency and everything is Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
and be like, you just point to the air. There's your problem, right?
Here's your problem. You got
Right
too much
there.
crap in the air in here.
Well, the question is,
ceiling
where's
fans
that
in
help
the way.
ticket go? Who gets that ticket?
The help
an AV
desk.
problem, or
The central IT help desk. The question
my
is,
tickets to
how does it
Larry.
get routed, right?
Yeah.
Because we're already having this issue where all of this Zoom stuff that we're doing, we're putting the mics Dante directly on the network with no VLAN, no QoS.
You're the Wild West.
Mostly works. But, the Zoom panel in the classroom says, there was a network anomaly. And projectors aren't
That's very
turning
helpful.
on. No, projectors aren't turning on, right? They're controlled over the network, and some other things are not working right, and maybe audio's echoing weird, like a voice transmission on a LAN without, proper QoS, perhaps. And so the tickets are coming to us. And we're like, network anomaly, reset, problem fixed. So
it's never the network, Justin. Never.
I know.
Never.
I know.
I've had assurances from the network team.
So it's one of those things where we're just starting to see this, and I'm intrigued to see where it goes, because in our case we're going to have to prove that it is a network issue versus a Zoom issue, right? Because we support Zoom, we don't support the network that all this stuff is running on.
I kind of agree with the sentiment of we are emerging into this world where the AV connector, as we know it, is going away. Like I read an article about a broadcast facility that bragged that they built this whole thing without an XLR, like zero, none. And to me, I was like, well, that seems a little irresponsible today. Now, 10 years from now, maybe not, but today, to have a broadcast facility where people like their own gear, and we have this vintage fetish with everything. I can't think of the last vinyl record player that came out that only had a network adapter. My Dante enabled Macintosh amp. But I also wonder if there's other hiccups here. Like I see this coming.
Is.
Well, I see it coming, but I think until we start seeing displays, like more than just projectors, that either use Valens, HD-based-T, or they use Nutex NDI, or they use, I don't care who's, whatever AV over IP system ends up coming out ahead. Great. But I kind of wonder now if one of the reasons we don't see more of those coming out in like displays, especially commercial displays without some special add-on, is do you think that HDMI, because they have to pay the licensing fees for all the chips and the connectors and everything for HDMI, do you think there's something written in there that says you can't? Because if you think about it, if we get rid of that connector and it's only a network jack, this company goes out of business.
Well, it'll still have a VGA. It'll have a VGA and a network cable.
But I just
Sunrise.
wonder if that's why we're not seeing some of these products, displays in particular, engineered with only network connectors. That since they pay the licensing fees for all the chips and the connector ports and everything else for the displays, if there's something in that contract, we're not manufacturing engineers that have to pay for this shit. But is there something in there that says, by the way, if you hot up a display with HD-based-T, we're not selling you the product anymore?
I think part of
Is
it
that
is
why
the
we're not
consumer
seeing this?
market. The consumer market still drives everything. And
Yeah.
as capable as we are, my mom and dad couldn't set up a streaming network AV system, but they can plug in a DVD player or a cable box to their TV.
But
And so
fundamentally, look at
until-
like cable though. It's the same thing. Like if
Yeah.
your TV came with your whatever your cable provider's 264 receiver built right into it, do you need a box anymore? And you just go directly into it.
It's the same as it was back like Mark was saying when your antenna and your cable was all on an F connector. And remember the first video game systems, F connector.
On an F connector.
Right? Everybody knew how to use an F connector. And I think everybody now knows how to use a network jack, right? And if they just hand you a network jack, you plug it in, and it's HD-based-T, it just works, right? There's no setup involved. You just plug it in, and it receives and decodes. But I wonder if there's something else. I wonder if that's what's holding us up, is that there's some kind of legalese somewhere in the processing chain that says, if you do this on your displays, you don't have HDMI contract anymore.
I think
And
another
therefore,
thing
the
is,
consumerism drives the market,
Yeah.
because if they don't have HDMI, we can't plug in our Xbox, therefore we can't play. I don't know. Just a question.
I think
Thoughts?
another possibility is, especially when you look at audio versus video, Dante's kind of the universal, like, okay, everybody's getting on that train. There is no video.
Well, Dante keeps
agreed
warning and saying,
upon.
"Hey, we're going to do video soon. Get ready."
Yeah, it might, and that might push this in that direction. But right now, everybody's still trying to create their own ball field.
But that's why NDI is super promising, because it's kind of the video equivalent of Dante at this point.
Yeah, it really is.
So, Jamie, to your point about, or to your question, I guess, your query about the legal side of it, I would say I don't think that's the case. You can get professional displays, especially big displays, and I mean big projectors, event-size projectors sort of thing. They have an HD-based T, like a digital link input sort of thing. Usually they'll have SDI, and that's it. So they have network and they have HD-based T and no HDMI. Now they will offer that as an add-on card or something like that, but I don't think it's a mix and match. I think it's more of just HDMI is the F connector of today, because it's super easy and you can plug that in and everybody's device can get to it, and also everybody's device they have at home has that. So why the heck not? From an LCD or maybe display panel generically, I think because the manufacturing is so close on consumer and commercial in that particular market. The chipsets, the encoders, the decoders, everything they have already supports HDMI, so that you're just soldering on 3 more connections and away you go, sort of thing. So it's become ubiquitous. So that is the lowest common denominator, even though, as you point out, they have to pay a licensing fee for every single one of those they do. Because when HDMI first started kind of creeping into the Pro AV market, there were a lot of companies who sat on the sidelines and said, we're staying out of this, in the hopes that it wouldn't make it and they would use DisplayPort or something like that, because there is no licensing fee with DisplayPort. But,
And it locks.
And it has latching
and
connectors.
And
I
it's
just
nice.
feel like at this point, the displays that have that as an option, especially professional displays, is still lacking greatly. I mean, I know we can get in some projectors, right? We can get, in a lot of projectors. But just the display, like if you went to most of the manufacturers and you just looked up, and you would find that 80%, if not more, 80% of them, no sign of any kind of standardized AV over IP, just Cat5 connector, right? I know you can get the add-on cards or some of the specialized ones, but just the off-the-shelf ones. There's also that frustrating part of me, and I know it's just programming, it's just firmware, it's that you already buy the decoder board for the projector. It's the same damn size to put it in the TV. I mean, you already own it, right? It's the same resolutions for the most part. It's 6 inches by 6 inches. Unless you're a fisherman, then it's 6. But
6.
why didn't they just put it in there?
I mean, let's rewind a little bit. Is this a similar reason, or maybe the same reason, of the 1610 versus 16:9? Projectors are 1610, but the displays we put next to the projectors are 16:9. Why is that?
See Twitter for more
I don't know.
details.
I just think
So there might be a
for an
bunch of reasons for it.
Please respond on Twitter.
For an emerging technology, I think it's right there. I think it's right there for emerging technologies.
Well, I think it's fascinating because
is the single connector.
Look at the audio. Let's remove the V out of this. Look at Dante.
Yeah.
Well, I will call it out as it is. Dante. I can get a microphone. Dante connected. I can send that to my computer directly. I can go from my computer directly to a Dante-enabled speaker. Right? That's the same paradigm we're talking about here. So why is video this last holdout when, Chris, you and I have done conversations and posted about, I can have a meeting. I don't need video for a meeting. I need audio. So why is video holding out? And we know that it's HDCP and blah, 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 blah.
HDCP,
But at some point, that wall is going to have to fall. And we're going to have to get to that simplified point-to-point solution that we just kind of walk through. And then it's coming. It's on the horizon. I think, get ready for it. Get your IT hats on.
Well, you can make that wall fall if you put an HDMI DA in front of NDI, and NDI will transport whatever you want anywhere.
And I think that's kind of like the
disclaimer,
pulling the curtain back. You're seeing the
home,
future there, right? I mean, there may or
Yeah.
may not be somebody on this call right now who has a bunch of NDI in a classroom that's moving around and having some success with it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they are.
Yeah, but I think your analogy of NDI, because I think it's an emerging thing, but I think the analogy of it's the Dante of 10 years ago is true. I mean, when Dante came on and it was still Kubernetes, it was SMPTE. I don't even remember what SMPTE it was anymore. AES 60 something. Anyway,
Kubernetes AES 67. You're mixing a whole.
No. It was a Matty sound and all these other ones, right? And Dante was kind of like, I'm not sure if I like the idea of this. And now it's ubiquitous, right? What I saw a study the other day, there's over 3,000 products that manufacturers that throw Dante out there. And NDI is kind of in that realm. Like, people are really intrigued. And as Justin said, you can be really flexible with that. And as I have learned recently, you can be really, really flexible with that. Maybe that's what the emerging side of this is. Maybe that's what's going to finally crack this nut, because everybody else is, to Larry's point, stuck in their own little silo, whether it's SDVOE or NVX or Atlonas, whatever the hell they call that thing. And or just plain old H.264, right? I love it that it's plain old H.264, except that you can't get plain old H.264 to be coded anywhere else.
Yeah, but it
kind of
it
pisses
works
me
though.
off. It's a standard,
Broadcasters have been using it, and it's been working. Right, we can ship things around across the country, and it works. But Justin, you're doing it now in your Zoom room enabled classrooms. You've basically taken out all your switching, and you're just all AV over IP right to your computer, right? I mean,
we don't
rattle that.
We don't really have any switchers in. We do have one small one doing a couple things in our Zoom rooms, but otherwise, your Dante. We're using video transport, like just point-to-point stuff up to the projectors. So that's more traditional, but like we're talking about, audio's there, but video's not. I can't just, plug my computer into the network and then get it up on the display. I need a NDI encoder. I need something else to do this. So it's coming. It'll be there. It's just the problem is the standardization and adoption, right?
So so Justin, to your point,
Dante
we need that
has been
ubiquity
adopted.
before this could truly happen. It should be truly ubiquitous. It needs to be the default that everyone expects to be there. No one
Dante
asks to have.
Yeah, like Dante had this
no one
life
asks
cycle.
To have HDMI now. They don't say, "Could you make sure this system you're designing has HDMI?"
They don't care. Yeah, and Dante had his life cycle of
it took
I don't
15
know
years.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't work right, or man, I don't know. And then here we are, like you said, 15 years. And then
you get
NDI has been out
of sound
for
guys
how
that are
long?
like rolling out giant trunks of snakes on concerts, and you're like, shit, I could just have this Cat 5. And you're like,
yeah, exactly.
Save your back.
Like,
they all aged out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
those are union guys.
How long has NDI been out there? Does anybody know the age of NDI by chance?
Look it up. Rachel, go ahead.
I was just going to say you aren't powerless here, right? Like these organizations, both the manufacturers that are implementing these standards and technologies into their products and the organizations developing them, they're listening to you, right? Like they're looking to the market to drive demand for and alignment around these standards into their products. So if you are talking about them and asking about them with your reps, then you have a better chance of seeing more widespread adoption of these products going forward and of these standards going forward. So if you like NDI, advocate for NDI.
Yeah. So I just looked it up. It's been around since 2015. So we're, we just said Dante's 15-year life cycle as of right now. So we have some time yet before maybe NDI takes over.
Yeah. Well, NDI and Jamie, you mentioned it, that NDI is kind of the Dante of 10 years ago. So NDI is about 10 years behind that. So will we see the same level of video-based ubiquity with NDI or something equivalent about 10 years from now? I would like to think it wouldn't take quite that long, but maybe that's our timeline for that.
Here's my question. What incentives does New Tech have to implement HTCP on NDI though? Yeah, besides, I guess maybe they
Consumer.
don't realize.
Like, that's the
If,
thing.
yeah,
like,
if they're smart, they'll stay out of that just because like look, we're production just like SDI, so we stay away
Exactly.
from it's unencrypted, blah 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 blah, and we stay away from having to worry about that. So I'm not saying it's NDI. I think we're too focused that it must be NDI.
Oh,
I think,
okay.
I think it could be
All
anything.
right.
It could be
that.
anything. Yeah, I think something,
Something
will come
like it.
along. A conglomerate will collapse a couple different versions out there and reflavor it and say, hey, here's your AV over IP standardization.
And I really think with the fact that the consumer market still drives everything, getting a standard that does not do content protection is going to be difficult.
Is
Well, the
people
consumer doesn't care, but the lawyers do.
are the
Yeah,
people?
exactly.
Did they?
There's some money there that's going to drive this in a certain
Yeah.
direction.
Oh, yeah.
That money
But
called
this
Hollywood.
isn't. Yeah, but with a lot of these connections, I mean, we're starting to see it more frequently. That now that everybody has these smart TVs, right, and everybody's buying their ad hoc packages. I mean, what was it? Netflix, for like the 100th time, announced yesterday or 2 days ago that we're going to crack down on people who, whatever, right? And so I think you're going to start seeing that copyright protection handled differently. That the stream's going to be there. Now, did you log in? Do you have a legit MAC address? Does the end point, so it doesn't necessarily mean what the transport method is the end point.
Yeah.
And which is going to make it, I mean, but we're already kind of seeing that, right? Like you can't get Disney Plus if you don't log in. But if you log in, chances are you have,
Well,
you're
you're-
approved.
So Jamie,
But if you
take a
log
step
in
back.
and then send it somewhere that's
You guys are
not
talking user level,
HTTP.
consumer level
Yeah.
stuff. So you have to log in with
Yeah.
an account because you paid for it. What if we go, let's take a step back and go network level. Anything on this network is authorized to display it. Now you're just talking, I'm going to fire around some multicast streams. And if I need 4 monitors or 5 monitors, it doesn't matter because it's just a giant stream. I'm subscribing to that stream on this device. And once we get those monitors, projectors, displays, whatever they are, that just have that single jack, like you've been asking about, plug that in, bloop, and bam, it's live. There's no additional
Well, wasn't
routing.
that
there's no
technically
additional-
part of that new HDTP anyway? They all had to be connected to the network so they could go out and find out who's legal or not.
To go out and get their license key renewed or whatever. I
you
just
could
feel
do
like
that at
I
network
can
level.
take a dumb device and drop it on and just say, grab this stream that's already out there, and it's done, and it doesn't affect anything else. But I think in my mind, I think that's where we're going, is like this idea of everything's going to get
subscribing.
lit up to streams. I'll configure the device. I don't need that magic box on the other side of it. This camera, this computer sends its stream to the network, and then any device on that network to prove to be on the network can pick up that stream if it can subscribe to it. So
Yeah.
And I think that the content you'll basically, it's kind of like the codec days of old where you have to register it with the gateway, right? In order for it to
Those are fun days.
to be encrypted, and there'll be stupid firmware updates, but it will be a plug and play solution, and the lawyers are gonna get their money. But more and more and more, we're seeing that those companies who really care about content protection, we're seeing them that they're only offering their content on their own service now, right? So they're getting their money. It's no longer this. I just hacked my cable box and I'm just distributing this everywhere. We're starting to see it now. Like the CBS is pulling all their crap off, or Paramount or whoever's pulling all their stuff off Hulu and Prime and whatever. And you have to pay CBS directly to get it. You have to pay ESPN directly or Disney to get it. You have to pay. And I think that's where it's not going to matter anymore if it's HDCP compliant. It's going to be
all of our money goes to Disney because they own everything.
you're going to start paying per display. You're not going to be paying for the service.
And but again, you're looking at consumer displays, not commercial transport, because you shouldn't be running your Disney or Netflix crap in your space anyway. So
what? Shh. Whatever.
Tell that to our teachers.
Well, that's the thing. It's amazing what's being protected now. Like because
general YouTube videos.
Well, video games, right?
Yeah.
Those two.
I mean, even some video games to plug them into a big projector in a room, they freak out because they're like, "No, this isn't a copyright protected display." I'm like, "I'm playing a video game. Screw off." I mean, I already paid for the game. Right.
Well, again, that's attorneys getting involved. So I do find it kind of interesting. I was just thinking, it occurred to me a minute ago. We were talking about Dante and that the ubiquity of Dante, that it's so available. So it's available on so many different devices. How many of us recently, and those of you listening as well, think about this one. How many of us have deployed a Dante or AS67, whatever, enabled DSP recently that has a whole slew of analog inputs and outputs on the back and didn't plug a single one in?
That's right. There may or may not be a company with a lot of Italian names that has a box that doesn't even have any analog connectors on it anymore.
Yeah, in fact, there's a company out of Anaheim who makes fixed architecture DSPs. I just noticed the same thing. They've got ones that are just like, yeah, these are straight up Dante. That's all you get. If you need more than that, go use something else. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think we're going to start seeing more of that from manufacturers. And so does that mean when you start seeing video do the same thing, are we just going to get on the back? There's just, there's two RJ45s and that's what you get, one for maybe your local LAN and one for your streaming LAN and done, so.
Yeah.
Exciting times.
Maybe one of those.
Say it, but
maybe
bring
one of those
it around
ports
full
is
circle. To bring it full circle, it will probably be a Microsoft thing that drives this whole thing. When Windows says, I natively, better than WiDi or whatever that piece of crap was that they tried to push a few years ago.
Is that where Miracast came from, or is it a different one?
They had their own. Lame. But when they start building it into the OS, and you can just plug your OS in and it automatically appears on whatever display's there, you're done.
So it sounds like what we're looking for is we need to find that ubiquity. We need to find it be common, adopted by a bunch of people. It's probably not going to be something we're using today, but it will be there. So look for that. Thanks for putting up with yet another episode of AV SuperFriends On Topic. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at avsuperfriends.com.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.